A controversial move at the start of the race at Road America cost NinjaTrader 10 points. But because Javi has swept the first 4 rounds for wins, he retains the championship lead. Today presents a good opportunity for his rivals to prevent him from taking 5 in a row. Track position will be critical, and if they can qualify ahead of NinjaTrader, it might be difficult for him to get by. We'll see how it pans out as we get ready to watch round 5 of the PRL GT3 series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Oran Park is among the sad few circuits here on iRacing that only exists in virtual form now. To see what's been preserved, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Oran Park Raceway. Though the track has been torn down and no longer exists in the real world, it was once located north of the town of Narellan, New South Wales. Thankfully, with iRacing's laser scan, it's saved for sim racing perpetuity, complete with a number of incredibly unique features. The most visibly notable of these is the fact that it was one of the few figure-8 road courses in the world. In fact, 5 of the 6 available layouts feature this crossover bridge, but most of them are decidedly short, with the longest one being a mere 1.6 miles, and the smallest barely over half a mile. You would think that this would relegate the track to simply club racing with smaller, lesser-powered vehicles. But the V8 supercars and open-wheelers with considerable grunt both competed at this place regularly. It must have been like wrangling a bull in a china shop considering the drastic elevation changes and the wickedly technical layout. Turns 1 and 2 make for a fearsome combination in which drivers are forced to brake and turn from incredibly high speeds into a tight left-hander. And the final chicane features a completely blind rise in the middle of it, making car placement almost a guessing game. The last corner also places a concrete wall all around the outside, giving it a street circuit-like feeling. The number of turns packed into such a small space makes passing difficult for just about any level of vehicle. However, mistakes can be easy to make, and most drivers will be ready to pounce should any opportunity present itself. It may have gone the way of the dodo, but rather than entering some sort of racing afterlife, fans and drivers alike can continue to enjoy this beautiful Australian track here in the virtual world. To be honest, I genuinely am sad that we've lost this track, as it's one of the more unique circuits, and though it isn't as popular here on iRacing, DJ, it's going to be interesting with cars as powerful as GT3 machinery.
It certainly is, Joe, and you hit the nail on the head in the intro that qualifying is going to be an absolute premium here. This is a very, very tight technical track. There are a lot of heavy braking zones with not a lot of long straights preceding them, so overtaking is going to be an absolute premium around here. If we do see any in these GT3s, look for it maybe in Coca-Cola, that first true corner off of the sweeper, which is the first corner, or maybe into Recaro, which is the final corner leading onto the main straightaway. But there are plenty of areas that these drivers are going to have to be very, very careful with. Just as much power as they are running, coming over the O'Brien aluminum dog leg, that tricky little right before the last corner, we are actually seeing these heavy GTEs launch off the ground ever so slightly here in practice and in qualifying. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be tight.
Should be fun, at least, as well, with the difficulty level today. But before we get to the racing itself, we want to remind you that today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net.
The PRL GT3 series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulations. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebutkicker.com. I mentioned briefly about the championship, and if we take a look at the championship points, Javi Utrera's leading by actually 26 points. His 4 wins have really done him well, despite losing 10 of those to a penalty that was given to him because of a move that he made at the start of the race at Road America. Lewis Goodway is the one chasing him, and then it's a pretty significant jump back down to Michael Davies. But Davies has taken second place both at Road America and the last round at Spa. Arnaud Genet is right behind him, 1 point back and fourth, and then Flores and Palacio are 1 more point back, tied for fifth. It gets very, very tight there on those last 3 spots in the top 5. What about the team points, DJ? How are we sitting with those?
Well, as you can see there on your SimMSA Esports is currently leading the bunch, 230 points up. They have not taken a win, though, yet, Joe. So very, very interesting. All of these top 5s, nobody taking a win, as a matter of fact. So very, very interesting standings, the way that breaks down. SRT Esport Blue just behind them, about 27 points back. So not too big of an unassailable gap, but they're going to have to start getting a move on as the series goes along. Their sister team of SRT Esport Black, they are 52 points back of our leader in SimMSA, but Davidson Motorsport Orange right behind them, only 5 points back, and SRT Esport Orange very close on their heels, only 9 points back. So the battle for third here really shaping up in that team's championship.
Now for today's race itself, here's our details for the event. We're in round 5 out of 10 actually, and there's the different makes that you can run here today. It is a 40-minute event. That will be a big talking point because, as you see, with the open setup, the 50% fuel usually means a pit stop. But around here, some of the drivers are questioning if they actually need that pit stop. They have a drive-through penalty at 11 incidents and actual disqualification at 17, and then some bonus points that can be grabbed by various means, one of which is underway right now, which is the pole position. James David has the provisional pole currently by about 2.5 tenths over Jorge Flores, but we still have 6 minutes left, and considering the laps happen in just over a minute, there's still plenty of time to knock him down.
Oh, there most certainly is. There, as you see James deciding to call it a go on that outrun right there. Going to go back out to try to get some more times in his Lamborghini. As we watch Lorente now coming up, this is that final corner. Really great corner, Joe. A little bit off camber, but the track rises up. It catches you, and you lie right onto the main straight like that. Lorente comes across the line. Looks like this is a bit of an outlap for him. He's slowing down here, so not pleased with his time. Here comes Tony Costello in that SRT Esport orange car, seeing what he can do, but he is unable to improve here.
Like I said, many laps can be put down here in this qualifying as we now watch Gallo up and around Recaro. Let's see what he's got with a 103.7. Got almost half a second to get up to Costello in 10th. This one unfortunately not going to count. He must have had an off track, or this might be an outlap for him. And you can see just how sketchy it is coming out of pit lane as it really dumps you right into that racing line.
Yeah, Joe, you talked about the ability to take a potential no stop as we see Christopher Rins coming across the line, unable to improve. Watching Flores now on an outlap. And I think one of the reasons one of these guys may want to try to no stop this race is so they don't have to run into the schmozzle that is coming out of that pit lane. Very difficult, very much like the old pit exit at the Korean Grand Prix back when Formula One ran now.
And it's not just the exit, but you can see the entrance there is very narrow. And in our coverage here, there's been a couple times where drivers have plowed into that entry barrier as they try to slow it up. Let's see what Secklin can do as Aldo comes to the line. Another one without a timed lap there. Back to Gallo. This one will count, and it is his quickest at a 1:03.655. That notches him up into 10th.
And here comes Kenny Rodriguez across the line, able to improve himself by about a 1/10 of a second, but he's going to stay 17th with that time. Mentioning these off tracks as we watch Rins coming across the line again, is he going to be able to improve? Yes, he is. He's able to go a 10th faster. The off tracks here, very, very difficult to take into consideration. There are very little curves anywhere around the track, so it is very difficult to try to take the maximum effect of the corners without getting one of those off tracks.
James David improves his fastest time by a few tenths. And Drew Deweese, who sits in 25th, has another one that doesn't count for him. Once again, Costello through in the number 8 car. Let's see what the Ferrari can do. Nope, that's a slow one. 1:05.2 is about 2 seconds off of his best. Morales, in the meantime, there we go, a 1:03.205, and that actually puts him on the front row.
Great lap there for Morales. He's going to be very, very pleased with that, as we're able to see there. David Menino crossing the line, trying to improve on that, and he does. 900ths of a second faster for David, but I don't think that's going to bump him out of 6th. Kenny Rodriguez able to improve again, but only goes up 1 position to 16th.
I'm watching NinjaTrader, so we made a big deal out of if he doesn't qualify on the pole, it'll be hard to try and overtake. Well, it's not just a case of, well, he's in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Javi Utreras is in 10th right now, and time is starting to run out.
It is. Javi's going to really have to get a motor on here at Oran Park to try to get that car going. Important to note that the majority of the field here running either the Ferraris or the Lamborghinis. We don't see a whole lot of variation outside of that. Michael Davies, the only guy running the McLaren, and Javi, only one of 3 running the Audis. So that devotion to a manufacturer may be holding Javi back here a little bit.
So J.R. Williams improve up to 11th. Looks like Diego Morales won't be able to, so we look at Menino one more time. Number 3 currently sits in 6th. He crosses the timing line, but doesn't go faster.
But I will say for Morales there, he is setting very consistent laps, pretty much within a 10th of each other all the way around. Here comes Christopher Rins coming across the line. His current best at a 1:04.3. This is going to be better by about 2/10. That'll bump him up the order, I believe.
Travis just started a flying lap. He'll have enough time for 2 of them, I believe, just barely. As we watch Marcheschi come around. And the 801 currently sits in 23rd, out of Recaro and to the line. The 1:04.3, that's going to be his best, and that will get him a bunch of spots. He's up to 18th.
Good job for him, and here comes Diego Morales across the line. This one looks like it could be a real flyer. Currently sat 2nd. He's going to cross the line with a 1:03 dead. Only a couple of hundredths off of James David.
Ooh, so close yet so far. That's not going to do it for him. Gallo, in the meantime, that's not going to improve, and he slows down, so that might be it for his qualifying. Jorge Flores, that looks like the start of a flying lap for him. What about Michael Davies? Nope, that one also doesn't count for him.
He's back across the line, unable to improve on that 1:04.1. He'll stay in 16th. Looks like he's going to pull it off to the side. Brett Thurman there, unable to improve on a 1:04.292. So he's going to have another go on it. Here comes Arnaud Genet, currently sat in 5th place. He is looking like he's on an outlap here, so this is his last chance to go, and here comes Cabales.
Oh, wow. Our championship leader just abandoned his lap. That is it for Javi Utreras. His qualifying is over, and he'll do no better than actually 11th as he gets bumped by another driver. This is really going to have a big effect on this championship, potentially. Magnan, who comes around, is currently sitting in 14th, and a 1:04.5 is not quite quick enough. We go to Walker in 22nd. He can do one more lap if he so desires with about 20 seconds left on the clock, but he does not as he pulls over. Flores, in the meantime, goes faster and gets himself up to 3rd.
And now Jorge going to be seeing if he can go any faster than that. Julio Palacio out on an outlap right now. Here comes Tony Costello across the line, unable to improve, ticking down. And Joe, there's the checkered flag. So here is the final laps. David Menino will not improve from his 6th place starting position.
And he's not going to get a chance at another lap. He was just shy of being able to begin a new one. Genet also doesn't improve, so he'll stay put. Sabalos, let's see what he's got. Nothing that time by. Had an off track. Marcheschi is slow, so that is going to be the end of his qualifying. And that leaves Secklin up next, a ways back as we hop on board with the Ferrari coming over the blind dog leg up into the final corner. Let's see if he can get this one clean and quick.
Looked like that car is just not wanting to grip right around that corner. May have brushed the wall. That may have been a 0x for him. But either way, it's not going to be fast, so it's not going to count. Aldo's going to stay 10th.
James David abandoning his lap, even though he's on the pole, so he's done. And then we've got Costello back, sitting in 13th, and he improves up to 11th with the last gasp. Brett Thurman also managing to put his quickest in, but looks like he does not gain a position.
And there's Sabalos having a little off track there, so that is going to wrap up our qualifying here today, Joe.
All right, slightly smaller fields, which honestly is a bit of a mercy for the drivers at a track like this, but James David has put it on the pole with Diego Morales starting in second. Then it's Jorge Flores in P3, followed by Louis Goodway on the outside of row 2. Arnaud Genet starts 5th, and then David Menino in P6. Michael Davies, 2 second places in the last 2 rounds, but he starts from 7th. That's going to be hard to repeat. Hugo Gallo starts 8th, and Julio Palacio 9th. Then it's Aldo Secklin in 10th.
Tony Costello is going to be starting off in 11th with championship leader Javi Gutierrez to the outside of him. He will be one to watch over the course of the race, see if he's able to make up any positions or if he's just not having a good day here at Oran Park. But behind them in row 7 will be J.R. Williams and Philippe Magnan, followed by Kenny Rodriguez and Christopher Rins in 16th. Brett Thurman will make up the inside of row 9, followed by Keaton Marcheschi in 18th. Pipe Sabalos will be 19th, followed by Eduardo Lorente in 20th.
21st goes to Brian Hotham with Jordan Walker in the 22nd position. Then it is Barry Cochran in 23rd, followed by Spencer Semkovich in 24th. Inside the next row, it's Drew DeWeese in P25. Last driver to put a time in qualifying was Brian Rossi in 26. Tremblay and Cowgill did not put a time down, will be gridded at the back of the field. It looks like both of them are in the session right now, so we expect all 27 of our drivers to take the green flag. They're waiting for the Porsche pace car to lead them around, actually far less than half a lap. This is just a couple corners before they get going. So getting those tires up to temperature might be a tricky proposition. It's 87 degrees Fahrenheit, not too cold, but we'll have to certainly take it easy on the way into the sweeper.
Yeah, especially a fast corner like that, it's going to be very, very tricky. Grip is going to be at a premium, so these guys are going to have to watch it a little bit. I think that and going down into Coca-Cola, Joe, is going to be very, very tricky for these drivers. They are not used to driving on this narrow of a circuit. There's really only one line through a lot of these corners, so it's going to be very, very tricky. Everybody going to have to be very cautious and make sure they know where everybody around them is going to avoid an incident.
Just waiting on Tremblay to come out and put himself on the grid. Oh, and it looks like Tremblay is not going to be able to be there as he has recently had a hardware failure. So 26 cars going to take the green today. Unfortunate that Jean-Marc made it this far and was not able to take part. So as they come around, Recaro, David has control of the field. Oh, and he goes a little too quickly and checks up. Everybody behind him has to take evasive action. This might cost second place to Morales as Flores looks to the inside. They come up towards the sweeper. Too wide into here is going to be tricky. And they all break for Coca-Cola. Is everybody going to be clean? So far, so good. Looks like everyone's tiptoeing their way in.
But here comes that fight up front. Ooh, a little bit of contact there with Morales. And that is, spinning around.
Flores.
That's Flores spinning.
He gets turned around and trying to evade some of the mess that was happening in front of him. He falls almost to the very end of the field. We'll come back to the replay later. David has a good gap because of that now. 1.3 seconds back to Diego Morales. Then it is an absolute train of cars. Menino, Davies, Goodway, Secklin, Gallo, Janae, Palacio. It just does not end.
No, it does not, and I think it's going to stay that way for most of the race if this continues, but that was a very, very rough start for everybody, not really sure when to get going, but David able to escape everything. David Menino, though, absolutely lightning start. He is up 3 places, as is Michael Davies behind him. Aldo Secklin, though, back in 6th place. He is up as well.
I recall that the race control was letting the drivers know as we ride on board with Menino, our 3rd place runner, that they cannot accelerate and slow when they start the race. And that's exactly what David did. Now, he had jumped it too soon and thought he was going to pass the pace car. I still don't think they're going to take a very good view on what happened there.
No, we've seen this league crack down on the starts. Javier suffering out last time with that 10-point penalty. I would not be surprised if James gets a similar one here today, but we will have to see as that happens. As you see up front, that is a very fierce battle developing. Morales really up the tailpipe of James David for the lead.
Yeah, he cut down that 1.5-second gap incredibly quick, which makes me wonder, is David already thinking about trying to no-stop this race and make it to the end? Could be why he's suddenly slowing up back into Morales. They come around to start lap 3. Not much between our top 2, but they are leaving Menino behind by about a second.
They are indeed, and Menino maybe on that same strategy. A lot of the guys behind thinking about that fuel conservation. If you can avoid it here, Joe, I would say do it. I think that no stop is the fastest way around the track, even if it's going to cost you a couple of tenths here and there.
Let's try and figure out what happened to Flores. He's back in 23rd, but I think we have a replay. The 929 just, I saw him go around, but I can't recall if he actually got help initially. So here's the start. Here we're going to see the checkup, which is certainly going to be eye-opening. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely mega there. You see Goodway diving to the outside there, and that just absolutely gets everybody bunched up behind him. But here comes into that sweeper that we talked about, watching Flores here in that 2nd place Lamborghini. There he is, clearly in front. That's Morales right behind him. A little bit of contact under the bridge, a little bit more there. And so here we go.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he did. That is Lewis Goodway, the Mercedes that got into the back of him, Joe.
Real big punch to the right-hand side of the car. I wonder if we could go to Goodway here and see what the 74's nose looks like, if he got any sort of damage out of that. As you can see, the Lambo trying to make up a spot. Yeah, that blunt nose of the AMG is even more blunt right now with the hood crumpled up.
Yeah, that's not going to be great. I would explain why Lewis has fallen back a few spots here from the start, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him too terribly much. He's able to keep the gaps relatively consistent in front of him, but I will say, as you look at this, Joe, the gap between that top 4 spacing out very evenly between all 4 of them.
And I believe that car that it was almost squeezed off was Morales in the 25. I might be wrong on that one, but it looked to me that that was the case. So things were getting very feisty. Unfortunately, they came to tears on lap 1. As Hugo Gallo now takes the quickest lap of anybody in this race so far. The way the train is backing up, it is looking suspiciously like many are going to try and stretch this thing to the checkered flag.
I think that's going to be the good call here, Joe. I mean, why do you go into the pits? You can sacrifice everything. You sacrifice everything. If you do it, you lose track position. You lose absolutely everything. Much better to just stay out on track and keep up behind the tailpipe of that driver in front of you. We talk about it in this series and so many other series. It's all about forcing that driver into a mistake. And around here at Oran Park, that's a very easy thing to do.
We're watching from our leader, but now we've hopped off as they come around the final turn, almost street course-like with the way the wall is right up there, and they have to take it all the way to the concrete to get the most out of it. David still keeping himself out of range. This train, let's see, how far down do we go before we get a major break? Looks like to 8th place, and then you go back to 9th, and Julio Palacio has about a second to make up to get to Genet.
It is just absolutely one by one all the way around here. Nobody really trying to make a gutsy move. Nobody trying to go for broke here, especially in the early stages of this race. I think everybody just wants to make sure they know how their car is feeling and doesn't want to push the envelope at a very unfamiliar track.
It's not one that shows up often on many of the schedules. Looks like we've got a problem for Drew DeWeese and the 523. This is in Coca-Cola. Let's see. I think he loses this on his own. Yep. Thing just comes around. Everybody going to have to go around the outside as that curb. You got to be careful going over that thing. You can't beach the car. It's very tall.
It is a very, very tall curb. This track very unforgiving, and right there, Coca-Cola, almost a double apex left-hander in the way that you approach it, almost a hairpin almost. It's very, very easy to do exactly what Drew did there and just put the power on a little bit too early and get that rear to overload and spin around. So you've got to be patient around a lot of these corners at Oran Park, and Drew just a little too overeager there.
Well, with still much of this race left to go, we've got 33 minutes on the clock, and David trailing along, many rivals just behind him, but we don't think that it's a case of them trying to overtake him quite yet. At least we don't anticipate it. Even though slipstreaming isn't a huge factor here, they can save a little bit of fuel if they ride behind the 89. And if it's a case of everybody trying to get to the end, that could be valuable. We're going to watch from the Audi's perspective as Diego chases James down towards the sweeper.
Watching those shift lights there, Joe. Doesn't look like he's doing a lot of lifting on the straights, but you see how early he is off of the throttle coming into the corner, so definitely a little bit of lifting and coasting, a little bit of bottle oversteer there, but he had the correct coming around the corner. Yeah, there you can see it. He is backing off ever so slightly, just trying to save the infinitesimal bits of gallons that he can.
Wondering about Jorge Flores. He's currently in 20th and has a ways to make up to the next car, about 4.7 seconds to get to Lorente, so he can at least put some hot laps in while he is all by himself. In the meantime, we watch from onboard Morales still. Back in 7th place. Gallo looks like he might have some company. Oh, we just had an incident with Brett Thurman. His 69 is in the barrier. This appears to be out of Foster's dip.
That is indeed the corner there, Joe, as we watch here. Thurman in that Lamborghini. The Ferrari. Looks like he just spins it around. We're going to jump on board and take a look here.
This is an underrated corner. It's very tough. It's a quick chicane. Oh, wow. It just started going very early. And then he tried to save it all through the turn. Unfortunately, it went the wrong way eventually, and he backs it into the tires.
Yeah, and Joe, that's one of the things that makes Oran Park such a great track is all of the quick changes in elevation that you get. It's not a mammoth run like Spa, Eau Rouge, and Radillon, but that quick little dip there, you've got to be careful when you get onto the power or you risk the car becoming very oversteer happy. And it's exactly what happened there to Brett. And the thing to keep in mind, I think, if you're looking for a comparison, very much like Mid-Ohio in the way that the elevation changes come at you.
Yeah, that does seem like an apt comparison. Another track that's relatively short as we jump back to Gallo, who were just about to cover his battle with Genet and Palacio. Both of them have been close behind. Gallo strong on the front stretch, though. Great exit out of Recaro. And that's going to prevent Genet and Palacio from having an attempt down through or into Coca-Cola.
Yeah, he knows exactly where he needs to cover that off. Gallo does, and that's right where it is. But you see there that the Palacio now being able to pull up behind to Janae, getting a little bit closer as we ride on board with Julio here. You can see just those elevation changes I was talking about, the quick flicks right there as they come around. This is right where Brett just about lost it, started to lose it here, and there he goes. But Julio able to keep it much better under control as they work their way around the back half of the circuit.
Looks like Julio's starting to threaten Janae instead of Janae threatening Gallo through the dog leg and up to Recaro as they break for the final left-hander. It's all about who can get the exit onto the front stretch. Looks like nobody really getting the good run here, but up in front of them, Lewis Goodway starting to threaten Michael Davies a little bit, and they've got lap traffic in front of them, including Menino getting caught out as Menino's going to lose positions. Brian Rossi in front of him, and I think was that 3 spots that he gave up in that one exchange?
It was, and Rossi even slowed down our lever, and James David coming around Recaro. That allowed for Diego Morales to get around him. So Morales is now leading the race. David is back in second. Everything bunched up because of that traffic.
And that started actually a long ways back, almost a lap ago, as James David got held up through Momo Corner. And you can see it's already into the final turn side by side, and they still haven't lapped the car that they're trying to go by. And eventually into the braking of the sweeper, Morales seals the deal.
It's a really heads-up move for Morales. Oh my goodness gracious. You can see just how crazy that got back there. Oh, very lucky that we didn't have anybody completely spinning off.
Well, that was extremely helpful to Diego, who was probably hoping for at least an opportunity to get some clear air in front of him. Now that James David is behind, he has the advantage. They come through Shell and into Champion, which then leads over the Yokohama Bridge. Staying right with him, though. David may have been overtaking, but he's making sure and applying the pressure to the 25.
Yeah, he is not letting him get away whatsoever. And looking up the road, Patrick Calgill is about 4 seconds up the road. So if I'm James David at this point, I've got my relatives pulled up. I know where Patrick is, and I am looking to repay that favor back to Diego Morales in about a lap or so.
Can he get the run off of Recaro? He's looking for it, trying to get the power down. It's a decent exit, but it doesn't look like it is quite close enough. Across the line for the start of lap 13 and break for the first 2 corners once again. This is not the ideal spot for them to start to catch Calgill, but it looks like they might have to do it through some of the technical portions.
And that is going to repay that favor. Joe, James David just going to be waiting here for Morales to catch him. You see how close he gets up there through Shell as they now head down into Champion Corner. He is keeping the pressure on him as much as he can. He knows where that car in front is, and he is just waiting for the opportunity to pounce.
Out of the bridge and through Foster's Dip. Oh boy, I think that they're going to get him just as they come through the dog leg. If he can manage to run through here pretty quickly, though, they might not get held up. Oh no, they're going to get, he's going to stay to the outside. Calgill somehow manages to avoid both David and Morales, but it was very tight. They get through. He's now on the front stretch as Michael Davies and Lewis Goodway will want to overtake him. Will he allow Secklin to go by? Yes, he will. He's going to slow up as much as he can, but eventually he's got to have cars next to him on the entry into the corner. And Menino, once again, is going to be the one that gets the bat into the stick there.
Oh, David Menino just not able to catch a break here today, unfortunately. But I have to give massive kudos on that run to Diego Morales. He knew if he just tried to be patient and take him on the straight that he was going to be an absolute sitting duck. Morales put the pressure on through Recaro and got the pass done, and it allowed him to keep this lead.
Interestingly, we have had a car come into the pits. It looks like Brett Thurman is going to try and get some repairs from his incident. At least I assume that's why he's in. It doesn't appear to be short enough for a scheduled stop. As we watch our 2 leaders come around the final turn, They are still gapping Davies, Goodway, and Secklin behind them, even though they have been held up. We're going to take a look at that battle for the final step on the podium. Davies definitely under a little bit of threat. Goodway's been keeping him within a couple car lengths.
Yeah, Goodway not letting him get away at all. The flames coming out of that McLaren. It's always so great to see that. I absolutely love that look. But Goodway really keeping the pressure on in what we thought was going to be a pretty dinged up Mercedes. He's clearly not having that many handling problems if he's able to stay this close behind Davies here.
Indeed, Goodway getting right up to the bumper of the 75 at times through some of the slower corners, but still unable to capitalize. One mistake could open the door. This is where Davies has to be absolutely picture perfect. They come through Momo. Another one of those blind crests around a fast left-hand sweeper. Another blind crest through the dog leg. And then the last corner, again, take a guess, it's blind.
You might as well just take your glasses off around here, Joe, for all the good it's going to do you. As you can see there, Davies getting a very good run off of the corner, able to prevent any sort of attack from Lewis Goodway. That appears to be the way to do it here. We've seen a lot of these guys do it, deliberately slowing down a little bit at the apex, coming through Recaro, and then blasting off the corner. But there you see Goodway starting to claw back just a little bit through that technical section. I have to say that's a bit surprising. I would expect the notoriously understeering Mercedes to do a little bit better down the main straightaway. Behind them,
I think Gallo just lost a spot. Yes, he did. Genet managed to sneak through. Let's take a look at this. This was another one elicited by a mistake from Hugo. It'll happen into Shell, so they'll run through the final corner here around the first two left-handers, and then under the bridge, you'll see him make the mistake. He's in the red Ferrari there, red and white machine.
Right on board with him here, gets down, puts the brakes on, very tricky braking zone as we've talked about, runs it a little bit wide. Ooh, almost
already a mistake.
Almost loses it, able to catch it back around, and here comes, just out brakes himself going down there into Shell.
It looked like the initial mistake put him offline as he tried to defend, and then he tries to come back to the racing lane, barely squeezing himself between Genet and Palacio. And unfortunately, that defense may have cost him in the end. Got a nice little battle for second still, as David and Davies are very tight. They had to overtake some lap traffic as well. Man, the lap traffic is just having a hell of a day today. There's no place to hide. Some of them are just practically parking the car because there's no rest around this lap. There's no place to keep yourself out of the way.
No, there really isn't, unless you want to be braking down the main straightaway. And there you saw Michael Davies flashing his lights, begging to get out of the way there. But all of that lap traffic is now allowed for Aldo Secklin in that Ferrari behind them to catch up. So Secklin having a great run. He is right up behind the tailpipe of Lewis Goodway here as they dive down.
Unable to get his nose in. But behind them, there was a little bit of a look from Menino on... Oh, no, that's a lapped car once again from Menino into the corner as he overtook DeWeese. Watch from Secklin's perspective. Still looking to see if he can get onto the podium. Goodway and Davies just in front out of his windshield.
You can see just how much Lewis Goodway is able to close up behind that McLaren through that challenging bridge section there. They come up through the rise over the hill. Now here it comes. Watch actually the flames coming off of the McLaren as Michael Davies tries to just pin Goodway back ever so slightly through this corner. There, you can see it. It's just a little bit of a longer break than you normally would do, and that throws your opponent slightly offline. And offline it did throw him as Aldo Secklin was able to gain about a half a tenth there on the Mercedes.
He stays within about half a second. Unfortunately, that's not going to net him a chance to pass. However, it's much tighter between David and Morales. It got down to about 0.2 of a second briefly. Patrick Cowgill ahead of them once again. He's trying to hold off the line. It'll compromise both of our leaders, so evenly they get slowed up. James David still right underneath that rear wing. Through Foster's dip they go. He's got to wait for a mistake from the car ahead if he really wants a chance to pass. Otherwise, he'll just need a monster run off the final turn.
And we really haven't seen anybody getting one of those here today, Joe. Nobody able to massively put the power down. Just a quick note, Keaton Marcheschi coming into the pits, looking like this is a scheduled stop. I don't see any damage on the car, so Keaton trying to be a little bit aggressive and going for a one-stopper here.
This is a pretty good exit from James David, but it's not good enough for one. He still can't get side by side down into Coca-Cola. We're past halfway in this race as well. Yeah, I do think Marcheschi, he came in for a scheduled stop about 16 to 17 seconds for the 8:01. So it looks like he was trying to split that one perfectly in half. Up and over the bridge, Diego Morales has snatched the lead away from James David after traffic opened the door. You talked about him getting paid back on that. They got a ways to go up to the next few. Jordan Walker and Brian Rossi are ahead of them, but it'll be a couple laps before we see them catch them.
Yeah, so now what James has got to do is just absolutely try to run perfectly and fill Morales' mirrors as much as possible. Joe, I would not be surprised if we see David maybe pop out to the inside halfway down the straight just to try to get into Morales' head, throw him off a little bit, make him think he's going to make a big lunge and see if he can't get Morales to outbrake himself going into one.
Love this perspective on board. Place at times almost resembles more of a go-kart track with how small and cramped it is. Drivers are just constantly having to steer and make inputs on the vehicle. A bit of a correction there coming off the champion from James David. He does appear to be pushing at least a little bit through some of these corners. Oh, and a mistake! There it is right there! Out of nowhere! Diego Morales spins it coming into Foster's dip. And David does get his opportunity.
Oh my goodness gracious. Jumping back to the replay to take a look at this. As you said, Joe, loses it through Foster's dip. I don't even know what happened there.
It looks like the car never settled coming off of the bridge. Watch this. Yeah, let's watch him on board. I saw a little wiggle here, right about there. Very strange. Yeah, it seemed like the car did settle. I don't know what exactly happened, but Morales, the end result is that he's in 9th, and he has a lot to make up here.
He certainly does, and now for James David, he has a 2.5 second gap over Michael Davies to 2nd, so he's just got to basically keep the pedal down here and not make any mistakes, and he'll be able to coast.
Really surprised to see Diego crack in that way. A bit ahead of him currently is the battle for 5th between Menino, Genet, Gallo, and Palacio. Poor David Menino's just been having kind of a miserable time here. He keeps getting held up by traffic, and this has put him backwards and being challenged outside of the top 5. As he takes the BMW into the final corner. Genet trying to tuck underneath him, get him to launch off the corner. Can the Lambo manage to overtake him? He's going to try, but it looks like he's fallen a little too far back for the time being.
I think if this straightaway was maybe just a 1/4 mile longer, we could see some overtaking, Joe, but that's not the way it goes. But you see there, Genet taking a very closer, shallower line through the sweeper, just trying to get any sort of advantage he can over David Menino, but Menino holding on with tooth and nails to that top 5 position and doing a very good job.
Let's keep the cameras here for an update on our championship leader, Javi Utreras, still in 12th place, despite starting this thing in exactly that spot. He has not made up anything, so this legitimately seems to be the number 10's pace. I just don't understand why he is so far off the pace compared to the rest of the season. Very close there through Momo for Genet, getting almost underneath Menino. And up ahead of them, it's going to be Jordan Walker. Will this play a part in the fight? Nope, he's going to pull off.
Well, and you saw there Janae really hustling the wheel out of the dog leg right there. I thought for a second that he may have lost it, but he's got a pretty decent run. Not going to be able to make anything work. Once again, that shallower line there. Joe, I think that's what I was talking a little bit about between David and Morales, that Janae knows that he's not going to be able to make the pass there, but he just wants to be a little bit aggressive, see if he can force a mistake, but he's got to be careful. Hugo Gallo in that Ferrari closing up behind very quickly.
I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't mind seeing Bootleg Racing League coming here through the dog leg. But that'll be a discussion for another time. They're coming across more traffic in front of them. And no, that is not a battle for position. Oh, but it did include contact. Secklin got into the back of Rossi. That's going to slow him up. Now Menino is going to catch up by multiple seconds.
And the fight starts to come back to it. Let's see what David Menino can do now that he's in attack mode. But really good roll! Oh no, Janae almost losing the tail off the corner there. Really good job to catch it.
Fortunately, it cost him a few car lengths in the process. Palacio and Gallo didn't catch him as much as they would like. Those two were close down into Coca-Cola, but no dice on a pass, at least for the time being. This is forming into quite a big train, because now we've got Secklin ahead of Menino, Janae, Gallo, and Palacio, who we've been talking about. Morales has rocked up after his recovery drive has taken him here. And then Costello, Williams, and Utredes. This goes all the way back to 12th from 4th place.
It's really remarkable, Joe, and it is a massive headache to any of those drivers that are coming under fire for being a lap down as they start to get out of the way for one car, and then they've got to wait for another 11 to go on by them. Just very difficult for any of them to handle.
Ooh, Janae's close again. He's very close. In fact, this might be the best opportunity we've seen. Already a slightly defensive move as Menino tries to weave to the inside, comes back to the racing line, seems to feel safe enough, and Janae thinks about it, but he knows that the opening just isn't there. He stays put.
I think we're maybe looking at a little bit of car difference there, Joe, as both of those drivers had a really good run off of the line coming out of Recaro, but it just looked like that Beamer was able to get up to a little bit of a faster top speed than the Lamborghini, just that Lambo not able to apply maximum throttle as much as it needed to.
Well, we've already seen a major mistake from one of our leaders, so I wouldn't put it past any of these drivers in the line to slip up that little bit and hand over all these positions to the tail of the train. Once again, yeah, I think you're right about the car difference, because it seems like Janae is just so much stronger than the Bimmer into that last corner. See Simkovic coming into the pits, but looks like, DJ, our leaders are coming together.
I've been keeping an eye on this out of the corner of my eye, Joe. Michael Davies has been positively reeling in your leader of James David. That McLaren just hustling its way around the track. He is now coming up behind him. He has gotten the gap to about 0.5 of a second, and it is continuing to fall.
Was the only driver in the practice session to crack under 1:03 for lap times. And that McLaren topped the charts. So James David might be sweating a little bit, because it seems like Davies' car is starting to come back to him. And he might be able to finally break that duck, go from the second place he's been stuck in the last 2 rounds, 1 step higher, and take a victory. But he's got to do it in the next 11 minutes.
Well, and if he's going to do it, he's got to have a better run off of the corner than he did that last time. You saw the oversteer he was fighting, doing it all around the track now. That gap has grown back out to about 0.6 of a second, so I think David recognized the pressure and was able to get a move on. But Joe, Diego Morales hopping into the pits here. Looks like he is going to abandon a no-stopper and go for a 1-stop.
Interesting. Wonder if that spin cost him that little bit of fuel mileage. As he trundles down looking for his stall, and there he's finally got it. So takes his little bit of fuel that he'll need. And And then he'll be out and going 7.7 seconds, but it sends him all the way down to 16th place.
Well, that'll certainly hurt him, but we're going to jump here to that battle we've been following. This is the battle for 5th. Arnaud Genet and Dino absolutely duking it out continuously here. Menino been able to keep Secklin behind him, but here comes the move.
Oh, yeah, he was really hustling it coming off of Recaro. I don't think Genet's close enough, though. That Lambo, as good as it is on the brakes, it doesn't seem to have the edge to try and make a sneak attack on David Menino. And Menino's not that far behind Secklin either. As much as I'm sure he has to watch his mirrors, he probably wants to try and make himself safer and overtake the 666 up in front of him, become through champion. Not many passes happening through this portion of the course. Not many slow corners from here until the last turn.
No, they are not. They are all those very tricky, just brush brake sweepers that you've kind of got to be careful of, that you can see how the cars bunch up as they go through them. There they make their way through Momo, through the dog leg here and now. And once again, you can see that Lamborghini close up so great during braking, and then the Bimmer just able to get the power down and get away off the line.
Few more cars having to pit, can't make it to the end.
Secklin, that was Secklin in.
Oh. So Secklin making the call, and he was at the front of his train, which is surprising. I would think that he must really not be good on fuel then, because of all people, I would think he'd want to retain that track position at all times.
I would too. I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is here. If he just doesn't think he's got it, what's going to happen? I mean, you're sacrificing everything. You're not going to gain positions back. We've not seen anybody able to pass here today. So these guys... Go
sorry, ahead. Flores into the wall. The 929, unfortunately, has bent it, trying to outbrake himself through the sweeper. Yeah, here it is right here. That day just has a horrible cherry on the top of it here.
Yeah, goes in through the sweeper, tries to carry a little bit too much speed, gets those right tires onto the grass, and gets off into it. But, Joe, we've got a flurry of pit stops. Goodway, Genet, Gallo, Costello, everybody coming in.
This is many from that group. And it looks like Kenny Rodriguez and Philippe Mignon following them in. Where is Secklin? Secklin's coming around through the dogleg right now. Looks like Goodway is in his pit stall, and he is back out and moving. Watching to see if Secklin is going to be able to stay ahead of his group. Spencer Zemkovich. Actually, that's the second stop for Zemkovich, I want to say.
On the brakes there for Aldo Secklin to get by Hugo Gallo. That was a very, very heads-up move on fresh tires. They're working his way around lap traffic, so it looks like Secklin lost out just a hair, but we'll have to see if Menino decides to pit. That will be the big tell.
Yeah, Secklin was ahead of Menino, right ahead of Menino, just before the pit stops. Look, he's bringing friends. Palacio and J.R. Williams going to follow him in. That is Barry Cochran exiting in front of them. That's on a different lap. Still waiting on 4 cars to take a pit stop. David, Davies, Gutierrez, and Rines have yet to stop. Lewis Goodway currently coming back out and in 4th place. Didn't have much time to try and repair that hood. And Menino is ahead of Genet and ahead of Secklin. Secklin trying to get back in this, and he actually hits side by side with J.R. Williams as we ride on board. Looking back at that battle, I think Williams is going to be able to retain 7th. Secklin falls down multiple spots.
That early pit stop there, Joe, the undercut not playing out. Looks like you want to try to go a little bit later here. That's the way to go, as indeed it does. David, Davies, and Utreras all in.
Here is the moment of truth. Has anybody saved enough fuel to try to leapfrog? Davies into his stall before David. Waiting for them to exit out. Should be quick. He's out and he's ahead. Davies is going to be able to jump David, and GT3 is not going to be able to gain on them much here in this pit stop sequence. And actually GT3 is very long right now. GT3 took tires. Why in the world did Javi take tires?
Oh, that had to have been a driver error, just not remembering to click the button to say no. Oh, bad day going to worse for our points leader of Javi GT3.
So the only driver still needing to stop is Christopher Rines, who's up to 10th. He's got 4 or 5 more laps to go, I think, to make it. Oh, this is an incredibly long stop for GT3. I wonder if he sped in pit lane or something and is getting a penalty. Surely this can't be for fuel and tires, because it's 45 seconds. Meanwhile, our leaders have swapped around once again. Michael Davies now in the lead. David trying to catch him, and they've got 2 seconds on Lewis Goodway.
So this really is a 2-car battle here. Davies in the McLaren ahead of David in the Lamborghini. Going to see what either of them can do at this point. But as we've seen, track position is king, and I think for Michael Davies, he's just got to keep all 4 bits of rubber on the gray stuff, and he might just be able to pull this out.
I'm trying to remember the last time we saw a McLaren win on this channel, because it's been a minute. And the 75 is looking like he's got a great shot at it. Oh, Menino once again having problems this time. He gets punted around by Genet, actually, in Coca-Cola. Some contact costing him multiple spots.
Oh, here we go, watching back. There is Menino in that Bimmer ahead of him. Here comes Genet. Oh, we talked about how good that Lambo is on the brakes, and just a little bit too good on the brakes there. Right into the back of David. Very lucky he didn't beach it there. Those rear tires in the kitty litter.
Just straight up punted him, unfortunately. Did apologize on the radio for that, but I'm sure it's little consolation for the points that he's going to throw away as we once again look at Davies and David out of Coca-Cola under the Yokohama Bridge. They're coming up on a little bit more lap traffic, and ironically, it is Javi GT3 who is back out and running after a 51-second pit stop, but looking likely that he'll go a lap down.
Talk about a twist of fate for our championship leader, but look how close that Lamborghini is able to catch up there through Foster's dip. They now make their way through the corner and head out, now trying to get anything. It looks like the McLaren's got a little bit of an edge here as they rise up through the dog leg. Oh, this is just absolutely one mistake ends it all for the battle for the win here.
And we've already seen plenty of mistakes. Drivers going off track, drivers hitting one another, drivers trying to unsuccessfully let the leaders through. We're down to 2 laps to go now. They're gaining on GT3. It's about 4 seconds to make up.
Based off of GT3's lap times, I've got to imagine that they're going to catch him on this next lap, most likely. But it's going to be all down to Michael Davies. He's got to pray he catches him at just the right time. Does not want to get bottled up and give any sort of an opening to James David in that black Lamborghini behind him.
Plunging through Foster's dip. He is really hounding him. The 89 is making sure that Davies is sweating. You know what? GT3 might actually not get lapped here. They're still catching him, but it might come at the very end of the last lap. It all depends on if he is willing to get out of the way and let them through. White flag now waves from Michael Davies. For 2 races in a row, he's been the bridesmaid. But here comes David, very close into the sweeper, not close enough and covering him off. Davies making sure to defend to the inside. Now they come up to Shell. Once again, hard to try and pass through this portion. David's going to have to hope for something miraculous for these last few corners.
And as we've talked about here, I think he's going to be hampered a little bit by the Huracan, that Lamborghini's inability to get that top speed when he needs it, because a drag race to the start-finish line would be his best bet. You see them start to spread out a little bit here. Davies not putting a toe wrong, only a couple corners to go.
It's been an arduous day for Michael Davies, starting from 7th on the grid, proving you can pass here and proving you can take victories from outside the front row. Michael Davies is going to win here today for the first time this season. David follows him in second, and Lewis Goodway with a hard-earned third.
Very, very good run for our top three as we follow Arnaud Genet coming across the line. Secklin, J.R. Williams, and Hugo Gallo behind him. Looks like nobody's going to be able to get enough of a run to change a position there. So that is going to be rounding out your top 7. Looks like Costello and the off and the line, David Menino having a very, very rough day coming home in 9th.
Menino just ahead of Morales, who wound up 10th. After starting this thing in 2nd position. From there on down, the last couple drivers to 16th on the lead lap are sadly not battling with one another. Everybody looks to be mostly kind of cruising home to the finish. What a fascinating race this one gave us. A wide open pit window and some surprising errors from some of our top drivers gave us a bit of a surprise. So we'll come back and run down the unofficial results as well as give you some driver interviews. So don't go away. Welcome back to Oran Park Raceway. This sadly now long gone track gave us quite an interesting one for the PRL GT3 series. Up at the front of the field, Michael Davies took the win. James David, in the meantime, was apologizing for his start and for slowing down. He had a little bit of a checkup against the rules, and he said if he gets a penalty, he'll accept it. He took a 2nd place. We'll see if some of those points get taken away. Lewis Goodway finished in 3rd with Arnaud Genet. A good back gap, 16 seconds back from our leaders and finishing 4th. Then it's Aldo Secklin in 5th with J.R. Williams climbing from 13th to 6th. Hugo Gallo took 7th with Tony Costello in P8, and then David Menino went backwards today, finishing 9th. Far backwards for Diego Morales as well, starting from 2nd and finishing 10th.
Kenny Rodriguez was able to come home in 11th, followed by Felipe Mannion in 12th place. Jorge Flores, you saw him have some incidents early on, all the way back in 13th. Same with Julio Palacio back there. Christopher Rhines finishing in 15th, followed by Brian Hotham in 16th, the last car on the lead lap. Javi Utreras, after that very, very, very slow pit stop, we saw him take the championship leader, finishing all the way down in 17th. That's really going to hurt his championship standings. Behind him in 18th was Eduardo Lorente, followed by Keaton Marcheski and Barry Cochran in 20th.
Jordan Walker, the last one lap down in 21st. Then it's Drew DeWeese in 22nd and Spencer Simkovich in 23rd. Brian Rossi wound up trundling home 3 laps down in 24th running it as long as anybody else with his pit strategy, and it didn't get him to the end, unfortunately. Everybody behind them, sadly, were DNFs today. And I do believe that we should have at least one of our winners in pretty soon. While we wait for them to join us here in a moment, DJ, this one certainly did not go as expected. We hyped up at the start that, you've got to put it on the pole to try and take the win here, and James David proved that wasn't the case.
No, James David absolutely putting on a masterclass of how to be calm, cool, and collected, like I like to always say. Just putting the pressure on when he needed to and waiting for the best moment to get that overtake. Obviously, being able to get by James David in the pits. Really, really spectacular run for Davies, though.
Great stuff. That'll certainly help him in the championship hunt. Now, Lewis Goodway was the other one ahead of Davies besides Utretis, but Goodway finished in third, just behind David and Davies. So it's not going to be too many points that he loses. Indeed, we have Michael Davies ready to talk to us. So let's talk to our winner and see what he thinks and find out. Mike, what's the secret to being able to pass here? Because somehow you managed to go from 7th to 1st. We didn't think anybody could do that.
To be quite honest, I missed qualifying. I should have been on pole easily. So that made life harder. I just taken advantage of traffic. David, the guy who was in front of me before the start, I knew he weren't going to make a mistake. He's a really good driver. Just taking traffic.
There was chatter before the race started, even from the race stewards, that it is possible potentially to go to the end on one tank of fuel. Did you want to try that, or did you know from the start you were going to have at least one short stop?
No, I was planning on not stopping at all. I had the fuel number down to 4 litres with about 15 laps to go, and I think it was doable. But I saw the 2 cars in front of me starting to pull away, so I just started to get back on with it and sacrifice the fuel what I'd saved to try and close the gap, which worked out in the end. And I had enough of a buffer to the Lamborghini what was in front of me.
Mike, it looked like that start was a little bit of a confusing situation. Obviously, the checkup and not wanting to get in front of the pace car. Talk me through that moment for you. You were able to really avoid any carnage and put yourself into a good position, but how was it behind the driver's seat?
I didn't even realise anything had happened. I'll be quite honest. I was just concentrating on doing my own thing. I also thought the leader went a bit early. So that might have caught me out a bit, because if you probably go back and look at the start, I'm probably 4 or 5 car lengths off the car in front of me. So luckily it worked out.
All's well that ends well, as they say, and finally taking your first victory this season. Anybody you'd like to thank, Mike?
Everyone at SimMSA. We've had a hectic weekend, especially with Lewis. Lewis beating the 24 hours and actually won his split, which was split 2. So congratulations to them, and just thanks for everybody for what they, especially yourselves.
And again, that was our winner in the number 75, Michael Davies, finally being the first person other than Utretis to win this season. But that's going to close us out for our interviews, and we want to give a big thank you to the sponsors as well. Thanking SimMSA ourselves. The Simulation Motorsports Affinity can be found at SimMSA.net if you want to get involved in the world of sim racing. And then, of course, if you are a day trader, check out NinjaTrader.com, and NinjaTrader can help you out there. And also, our final sponsor is Butt Kicker Products. The buttkicker.com is where you can get a hold of some of them if you want to see if your sim rig can be all the more immersive for you. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media, which includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, our merchandise store is simply gsrc.storeenvy.com, but we got a link in the description below that you can click very easily if you want to check it out. The next race that we are covering is going to be Laguna Seca. That'll be Monday, February 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But in a week's time, the series is heading off to Imola, where they will race over in Italy. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out on your calendar. Coming up in a few moments is the Porsche Owners Club going to Nürburgring. That's at the GP course. That'll be at 10:45 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.